Welcome to the Omega Metroid podcast. My name is Andy Spiteri, joined by Dakota Lasky. Dak, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good, dude. I'm doing good. Hope you had a great Halloween. I think I had a pretty decent Halloween. Got to see some friends. That was cool. But yeah, I'm doing good. How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Let me tell you about my Halloween, actually.
Okay.
So, me and my wife, we bought our house last November. It was like the second week of November, so we just missed Halloween when we got here. And we live in a new community, so like there's lots of young families. There's like a ton of schools nearby, so we're just like, there's gonna be a ton of kids trick or treating. So we buy like $40 worth of Halloween candy. We got like the giant bag of sour gummies. We got the peanut free chocolates and stuff like that so that I can have some. And we got this like some ambiance mood lighting. We got like this light that changes colors from purple to orange to green, just to let the kids
Decked
know
out.
like this is a happening house. Yeah. We got some tombstones in the front yard. We got our stuff ready to rock. And so we wait. One kid comes by, and I'm like, okay, great. Like 15 minutes later, a second kid comes by, and I'm like, what is going on here? Like I thought there would be just like a barrage of kids. Like an hour goes by until the next group of kids. There's like 5 kids. It's 8:30 at this point. They come up. I'm literally just about to shut the light off to just go like, bah humbug. We're done with this.
Right.
So they come up. I gave them like the most massive handfuls of candy that you've ever seen because like we have a disgusting amount of Halloween candy left over. So that was my Halloween. It was kind of a bust. Like we didn't dress up. We just kind of embraced like we're gonna hand out candy. It was Sunday night, so yeah, it was kind of a bust.
Well, it's not a bust. The bosses in Metroid Dread, because
Oh,
we're talking about them today. Boom.
yes!
Segue.
Wow, that was great.
Oh yeah.
That was
That's why they
that
pay
was
me the big
fantastic.
bucks.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have a lot to get into here, so I guess we should just jump right in and get to it. Of course, like Dak just mentioned, we are ranking the bosses of Metroid Dread as we were talking about last week, and we are going to do this in what we call definitive style. So we're going to take one boss and we're going to talk about that boss. We're going to take a second boss, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to rank it either above or below the last boss that we just talked about. We're going to take a third boss, and it's going to go either in 1, 2, or 3. The fourth boss is either going to go in first, second, third, or fourth spot, etc., until we get one master list at the end. And I don't know, I feel like our lists might kind of be similar because I feel like there are some definite like standout bosses in this game, but maybe they won't be because like I don't think that there's any bad bosses in this game. So like there is a little bit of wiggle room and maybe preference will come through a little bit here. So I'm excited to see kind of where we fall and where we land on this list.
Yeah, certainly. There's like I think an overall consensus for most people, or maybe I mean that's a bit redundant, but yeah, I would say most people would say that the bosses in Dread are really good overall. Like on average, Dread has some of the best 2D Metroid bosses. I think is what a lot of people would agree with, and I would definitely say that myself. Certainly a lot of memorable and fun boss fights. So yeah, definitely looking forward to jumping into this.
Yeah, and just so some quick rules of engagement here. So you fight the Chozo soldiers and the Chozo robot soldiers multiple times in this game, and they come equipped. Some of them with shields. Some of them are a little bit more fancy schmancy than the other ones. We're gonna group all of them together. So when we're talking about a like a spear warrior fight, we're gonna be talking about basically we're gonna be amalgamating all of them together, and I guess kind of averaging those fights out to get one kind of master place. We are going to do the twin fights separately. There is a time where you fight, more than one time actually, where you fight a couple Chozo robot soldiers, and those are pretty intense, so we figured that we would rank them separately. Also, we are going to include the Emmys, not maybe a traditional boss per se, and we're going to lump all of them together as well, because the central mechanic and the central gimmick for fighting the Emmys is mostly the same. So, there are some generalizations, amalgamations here, but this is the way that we're going to do it. And let's get started off with our first boss. And
All
we'll kind of
right.
go, I guess, in chronological order here. Um, and I guess just start off with the Emmys. Really, they're the first boss that you fight in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you go from the broken Emmy to the white Emmy, who has the spider banged ability, then to the morph ball Emmy, speed boost, wave beam, ice missile, power bomb. But you don't really fight that guy. But yeah, progressively harder and harder as you go along, and progressively. One of the things that I really liked about the Emmys, which is I think it really shined in the blue Emmy fight, was it was progressively harder and harder to like line up that shot with the Omega Cannon to blast away the protective plating on the Emmy's head. And it took me a really long time with the blue one in particular in order to actually make that work. I really liked how with the purple Emmy, you kind of had to like go through this obstacle course almost in order to finally get a clear shot at it. Of course, this one has the wave beam, so it is able to fire at you from any which direction. Really just like clever designs overall. The first two Emmys are fairly easy, as we talked about last week when we covered Arteria, but I think that those really do a good job of like kind of showing you how to confront these Emmys. So yeah, I think that the only thing that I didn't like about the Emmys, and I just kind of mentioned it, was uh, you get geared up to fight the Powerbomb Emmy, the Orange Emmy, and spoilers, just saying spoilers. But that is when you go full Metroid and you basically just grab it by the head and suck up its life juices, and that is the end of the Orange Emmy. It's kind of an anticlimactic fight actually, and I think that holds it down as a whole for like in terms of like a boss fight for me. I think that could have been like a cool opportunity to like maybe have like that more traditional boss fight with the Emmy fighting the Orange Emmy at the end. So that one knocks it down just a little bit for me, but as a concept, amazing. As a boss, really creative in a lot of different ways. So again, there's not really any bad bosses in this game, but we're off to a strong start with the Emmys. Dak, what do you think?
Well, I agree on the powerbomb. I mean, I think that would have been a cool idea to make it more of a traditional boss fight, like in terms of the context of Metroid fights and boss fights in general. That said, though, we started off with I think the strongest of the bosses in the game. I think as a total package, like I have to put Emmys at number one on my list. Like it's this is the first Metroid game where like the essential gimmick of the game, like the essential like fundamental hook of the game is a specific kind of boss fight. And I love that it's not like your traditional Metroid fight. You have like these larger rooms that are multi-branched and have like different areas, and you have these ever-changing boss fights that are different as you scale up with you through the game and force you to change tactics. They really command a good part of the game too. And I really think I don't know if we really had a Metroid game like that where like the big hook is like the actual like bosses themselves, and taking them on and having this specific kind of boss that goes outside I guess the normal parameters, what we normal expectations of a Metroid boss fight. Yeah, I have to give it to the Emmys. I mean, these are at the top of my list. We have so many cool boss fights. Some of the best boss fights in the game are the Emmys. Some of the hardest are the Emmys, and they really live up to the game's title. So, yeah, I mean, even over the final boss, as much as I love the final boss too, I would even say like overall as a total package, the Emmys are probably the like one of, if not the best, like most well done part of the game. So they're at the top of my list. I don't think there's anything better.
Yeah, I don't really disagree with you, and I was kind of curious actually because I didn't make a list going into this because I didn't want to have like kind of an idea of what my list looked like. I think in my mind, once we decided that we were going to cover the Emmys in general, I was like, all right, so it's that. Obviously, Raven Beak comes to mind when you think of amazing bosses, but yeah, I don't really disagree with anything you said. I think it's so strong as a concept and as a like the execution of it is strong, and it really maybe it's cheesy, but it really does invoke that feeling of dread that they clearly were going for.
Yeah, I would
Before
say
we
that
move
I
on,
would honestly say like overall, my favorite moments of playing the game have been like the frantic moments of getting away from an Emmy. Like many of my main favorite moments of the game are getting away from an Emmy or trying to get through a room really quickly to avoid one or taking one out. after fighting it for a while or running into it a bunch of times and finally getting the final killing blow. Stuff like that, like those are the best parts of Dread for me. So yeah, Emmy's definitely my favorite.
We got to take a quick sidebar for a second here, Dak. Have you been to Nintendo New York lately?
Not lately, no.
All right, so our buddy Joey Ferris of Game Explain just posted a picture of Nintendo himself at Nintendo New York, and there is like a ginormous Emmy, and it looks like I can't tell if it's a cardboard cutout or if it's like a full scale Emmy. I think it's just a cardboard cutout, but the thing is massive and it looks super cool. And there's tons of Metroid Dread stuff, you know, all over New York, Nintendo New York. So I just caught that scrolling as we were talking about the Emmys, and I was like, oh man, that's really apropos.
Look at that.
So yeah, look at that. Okay, well, from one awesome boss to another, I feel like we're just gonna be saying this over and over again. We're going to Corpius, and dude, this guy is also awesome. He looks absolutely sick. He's like this scorpion looking like beast, but he doesn't look like an insect. He kind of looks like, I don't know, almost like this creepy, like a dog almost, but like with a bald head, and he's got that giant scorpion tail. He looks like a complete monster, which is like so. I love that about Metroid when it goes and like you're fighting monsters. I just love that. And this is another awesome fight. We kind of touched on it last week, but it's it's kind of like an intro boss fight, but kind of not, because you do have your bearings a little bit at this point, but it really does show you. I think it really gets you to think about your positioning, and it really gets you to think about your arm cannon and like the free movement of it, particularly because there's a spot on its tail which isn't like, you can't really hit it if you're just shooting straight, or if you jump and you shoot straight, you have to aim at it. So I think that this is a really good job, this fight, of like teaching you to like really utilize that during the boss battles. And like the actual boss battle itself is awesome. It's got like this red mist on the floor, like we talked about last week. It looks like blood coming up everywhere. You've just got this tail that's absolutely coming at you from every different direction. He turns invisible. There's that awesome sequence where like he turns invisible, he puts his butt to you, and you can slide under him and then counter him, and you can grab on, and you're just like pounding him with missiles right in the side of the face. Like, it's absolutely awesome. Really great usage of the spider magnet too in there, because he like I don't know, puts sludge or something on the floor, so like you have to grab a hold and blast him, and you can even fight him when he's invisible. This is an awesome fight. It's awesome.
Yeah, I disagree that it's not a starter boss, because it very much is. Like, it's very much meant to like test you on the fundamentals of the game at like a basic like aspect. But it's a really fun fight. It has really cool cinematics. Like, the stage is awesome, and it has some cool phases that force you to jump on the wall, like you said, slide through, do a quick time event, shoot at his tail. Yeah, really cool. I mean, really awesome character, like boss design, like enemy design too. Like, really unlike anything you kind of see in Metroid before, but like kind of looks like a Metroid, kind of doesn't. And it's like this very visceral and bestial. It's awesome. I think overall, it doesn't, like, in the grand scheme of all the other boss fights in the game, except maybe a couple, it's not like extremely challenging at all, and it's probably one you won't die like fighting. I don't think I died against Corpius. I might have died maybe once. I really don't think I did. I would say most people didn't. So a nice executed like starter boss fight. I think in the grand scheme of the game, it definitely is outshined by a bunch of others, and the music is really weak in this boss fight, but that's really goes for most of them in this game. That said, yeah, it would overall a really well done like early game boss fight. Definitely a cool one.
So I guess I think that I would put this. So I mean, obviously, I would put this under the Emmy boss fight, but I guess kind of part of me feels bad, because like I almost feel like it's not fair, because you're amalgamating so many different like core boss fights throughout the game, whereas this is definitely like a standalone moment. But I think that the standalone moment is really strong. It does teach you a lot about movement and about counters and about just little things the skills that you really need to take forward to the next groups of bosses that you do fight in this game. So I think that Corpius actually will rate pretty highly for me in the end, but certainly a number two behind the Emmys on our list right now.
Yeah, I did make a list before this, and Corpius is towards the bottom for me, but not at the very bottom. But I mean, it's one of those things where even if you're towards the bottom of this list, just I mean, all the bosses in this game I think are really well done. So I don't think that's like a knock against it or anything that's towards the bottom of any particular list. But in terms of our list right now, yeah, definitely below the Emmys.
Yeah, we kind of have like a running joke on the Zelda podcast where it's like the worst dungeon in Ocarina of Time is still better than most games' best dungeon, and I feel like you could almost apply that
Uh,
to this game. Where like,
that's not
well,
true.
I know you probably wouldn't agree, but that's that's my 2 cents. But I feel like the worst boss in Metroid Dread is like still like a really good Metroid boss. There might be I think I would label maybe one stinker in here, but when you're looking at a dozen bosses, that's pretty good. So yeah, so our list so far: number one, we got the Emmys, of course, and number two, we got Corpius. We are going for the big boy next. We're going to do these in chronological order. You know that I was absolutely 100% loving this. It is Kraid, and they don't explain how he got there. I don't care. It really doesn't matter. It's great fan service. I do think that it is a little bit of a missed opportunity not to have like a battle-y remix of like the Kraid theme from the original Metroid game. But that being said, that's my only really complaint about this fight. This fight, otherwise, it's awesome. It has like, if you're an old school Metroid fan like we are, it has like the classic like Super Metroid bits where like Kraid is throwing his claws. He's got the gunk thing spitting out of his belly button. His belly button just looks absolutely disgusting, by the way. I love that. I love that there's a little bit more to this fight than we've seen in previous Kraid fights. Like, I love Kraid, but in Super Metroid, you can literally kill him in about 1 second. Doesn't take much longer in Zero Mission, and maybe in the original NES game, it's a little bit more of an engaging fight, but really, how engaging could it be on the NES? So I really do love that this fight is a little bit more involved. There's 2 stages, so it's a more drawn out process. You can, if you want, get the early bombs and defeat Kraid that way, which is like incredibly satisfying. It's satisfying in the same way that like popping a zit is satisfying because you go into his belly button and you just bomb him and it's all pussy and disgusting and gross.
Ew.
I love the setting, the big lava tank room, and Kraid is just doing his thing in there. I love the cutscenes. Oh my god, the cutscenes where you just run up and you are sprinting across Kraid's giant, disgusting, bulging belly, and you just plant him right in the face. I love actually even before the fight where you see Kraid and he just like gets right up in Samus's face. Samus does not even flinch. I mean, everything about this is so awesome. In terms of like other fights in the game, like it's not as involved. It's a little bit more simple. It doesn't take as much like quick time finesse, or you don't have to be picture perfect like you do in some of the latter fights. However, for me, just the nostalgia of seeing, first of all, Kraid in a game in 2021. He looks awesome. It's a great fight. This is near the top of my list. I think I would put this at either number two or number three. And you know what? Just because I know that you're gonna put the Emmys above it, I'll put Kraid below the Emmy on my list. But like, man, everything about this fight, I just love. Like the old schooler in me just loves this fight, and I could go on about it, but I'll stop rambling and let you have it.
I don't want to rain on your parade, but this one's actually at the bottom of my list. I'm at the very bottom,
No.
the most bottom of the boss fights, the mostest bottom. Again, I mean, I don't think that's a knock. I think there are just so many good boss fights in this game that this one just didn't. It doesn't stand out. Presentation wise, it kills it. Despite the fact that Kraid sounds awful, and doesn't sound cool at all, and sounds like I don't know what they were doing with Kraid's sound design. Like, does not like this weird screeching noise instead of like a really awesome roar or something that he should have. And other than that, like, yeah, like the presentation's cool. The cutscene is sick. I would have liked an explanation for why he's there. I think it's a kind of a missed opportunity because the boss fight, like, yeah, it's a little bit of an like an improvement from previous Kraid fights, but it's not really that much different. Compared to other boss fights in the game, there's not really much going on. I kind of wish that they had done more. Like, if they're gonna bring Kraid back, like they had him all chained up, they should have had him like break free, or like shown that maybe he can move really fast now, or he can get up from the ground or something. I don't know. Like, they should have gone all out instead of just making it kind of like a pretty standard Kraid fight for the most part. And even though I guess they don't need to explain why he's there, I still wonder of all the characters to bring back, why they would bring, like, not like why Mercury's team would bring Kraid back, because that's obvious, but why the Chozo would even bother to bring Kraid back. He's one of the least useful of Samus's enemies, and one that Samus has never been threatened by. So I don't know why they would do that, but that's not the point. I think the boss fight itself is not, you're not gonna die. I was expecting a bit more. It is very much, again, another starter boss in this game, which is fine, but it kind of gets outshined by everything else. And I think, the boss fight isn't super crazy. So it kind of just like, I was hoping for a bit more with Kraid, and I was like, it kind of just like, oh, Kraid's here, you kill him. All right, he's done. See ya. But yeah, it's cool that he's back, but he's at the bottom of my list.
Oh man, that hurts my soul to hear. You know what?
Sorry, bro.
I'll push back a little bit. I think that, yeah, it's not as involved as maybe some of the latter fights, but as far as like a traditional Kraid fight goes, there is a little bit more to it than simply blasting him in the mouth, as you saw in previous titles like Super Metroid. Particularly the second phase, once you get down and dodging all the acid, and how the acid can like bounce around, and you can shoot the acid to get health refill or missile refill or whatever. It adds a little bit more to this fight. I mean, I'm not going to argue with you and say that it's the most in-depth fight in the game. It's obviously not, but I think that this was put in there totally as a fan service moment.
Well, yeah, I agree there, but that's my thing, is that if you're gonna bring him back, like really do something with him. It feels like they brought him back just for a couple of cool cutscenes and otherwise a pretty average fight. Like, I was hoping for a lot more. I was really hoping that he was involved with the experimental boss you see later, and they're like, oh my god, it's like Kraid X, or it's like experimental Kraid. Then it would have made more sense for him to come back, and then it would have been really cool to like expand on that. But it was actually kind of a follow-up from Corpius and another foreshadowing of a background element in another room, so that's fine. But like, yeah, it's very obviously fan service, and that's cool, but I was kind of hoping for a bit more if they're going to go out of their way to bring him back. It was pretty, for the most part, a standard boss fight for a Metroid game, and certainly mostly standard for a Kraid boss fight too, so I was kind of hoping for a bit more.
That's fair. And I actually, one quick thing that I want to mention before we move on from Kraid, you mentioned Kraid X. Actually, when I first beat the game and Raven Beak kind of transforms into Raven Beak X, I thought that was Kraid. Like, it looks like Kraid.
Yeah, and I was
right?
like, I would have been sick if that was Kraid at the end, like Kraid X, but it's like the Chozo guy with his Kraid body, and I was like, okay, like, that's the thing, and like, I don't understand why they are bothering with Kraid at all. Kraid is completely immobile and useless. Like, I don't understand. Like, I get the fan service, oh cool, it's Kraid, but like, story wise, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, it makes sense that Ridley comes back a lot because he can fly and can move through the vacuum and is not immobile and is strong. And Kraid is pretty much a big like target waiting to be melted. So like, I don't understand.
He's a tank.
But he's tanking
tank.
what? Like, he's sitting in a room, he can't move. Like, a whole point of a tank is to get in the front line, to move around and like take shots. But like, Samus could have avoided the room. What if Samus even got there? Like, Kraid is just sitting in a room waiting for someone to show up, essentially, right? Like, I wish there was more of a reason for Kraid specifically. Like, there's so many more mobile and stronger bosses that they could have brought back. From the Chozo perspective, that would have been more effective against Samus, or anything for that matter.
Well, he was clearly a prisoner. He wasn't waiting for someone to come, unless it was someone to break him out.
But was he a prisoner?
For Ridley to come in.
Because he's dead. Samus killed him.
You tell me. He's locked up. He's got chains
the game
around
should have
his
told
arms, his
us,
neck.
for one thing. I shouldn't have to tell you. The game should have told us. But that's what I'm saying. Did they?
Well, he's obviously a prisoner.
Well, how is he a prisoner?
That's
Did they
neither
clone,
here nor there. That's more so in the story.
Did they clone Kraid and then they made him a prisoner? Why would they clone Kraid? That doesn't make any sense.
Because Kraid rocks. That's why. Duh.
He doesn't rock. He sucks. He got bodied and he's at the bottom of my list. Where's Ridley?
All right. Well, he's the middle of my list. So on this list so far, we got. I'm gonna put him above Corpius. I don't care what you say.
You
You
can
can
put
take
him
one
above
from me
Corpius,
later.
but he's not above the
I'm putting him
enemies.
above Corpius. Yeah, I'll owe you one, but this is the list. We got number 1, we got the Emmys. Number 2, we got Big Daddy Kraid. Number 3, we got Corpius. Number 4 coming in, not number 4 on our list, but the fourth boss that we'll talk about here, the Chozo Soldier, the robot Chozo Soldier to be specific. Dude, I can't tell you how many times this guy killed my ass in Metroid Dread. Specifically after the scene where Quiet Robe is, assassinated by this guy, which also doesn't make sense why he was assassinated because, as he was just explaining, he's the only one that can control the Metroids, and this robot just decides to shoot him right through the chest. But that's neither here nor there. And you fight this guy a couple different times throughout the game. You fight, I think, a golden version of him, which is pretty tough. I put this one, I don't know, probably of the 4 that we've talked about, I'd put it fourth. It's an okay fight, but it is like rather annoying. I really don't like that there's no way to counter the like when he raises his arm or whatever and it goes red, and you can't counter that. You just have to get out of the way. I don't like that at all. I feel like there should have been an easier way to
It should be
dodge that
easier,
or turn
is
it
what you're
around.
saying. It should be easier and more forgiving. You need to get good, Andy.
No,
You need to get good.
Just like a clever way to counter it. Like do something. Like give me a way to turn his momentum against him somehow, or just basically I just didn't like being Samus, like having to quickly run away, and particularly where you fight the robot. Usually it's like in a fairly narrow passage, so it's not like you can just jump right over it. And even if you can, it's a pretty unforgiving attack. So like if you're anywhere near that hitbox, you're gonna get bodied. So I didn't really care for that. I will say that once you get the storm missiles, these fights become much more manageable. But yeah, I think that I don't like this one as much as the Spear Warrior. So I think he's going to be bottom of my list. And like I said, you do fight him a couple different times, so it's not like the setting can really add to, the boss fight or anything like that. So on our list now, I think he's 4 out of 4 for me.
I have these. Well, I mean, I have the silver robot Chozo soldiers, the golden robot Chozo soldiers, and there's like the twin robot Chozo soldiers, which we'll save for later. But I love these fights because this is just like pure like adrenaline right here. It's just like this guy is just chasing you down. I love how they fight like the SAX fights in Fusion, and even the first time you run into one of these guys, it's in a room just like the SAX boss room from Fusion, and it's literally the same pattern. It like chases you down just like the SAX does in that room, and you kind of go in that circle. So I think that was a nice little throwback. I love these bosses because they're just like straight up like super strong, fast. They're constantly chasing you, and you have to constantly stay on the move. You can't counter. You have to like brute force them or be really like tight with your timings in terms of movement. I love these boss fights. These are really this is the kind of boss fight I really like, where you're constantly on the move and you have small little windows of opportunity to get damage in. Like, yeah, I died a ton against these things until I got a little stronger or figured it out, and that's what I loved about it. I preferred this kind of fight way more to like a Kraid than a boss or a Corpius, where I beat it once and I'm like, that wasn't challenging at all. So yeah, these are at like the middle towards top of my list, and I would 100% put these guys above Kraid and Corpius without even a question. Way more fun fighting these bosses. So yeah, I put these towards the middle-ish top of my list. I like the design. I think they're really cool. They have a really awesome kind of ferocious, like ferociousness to them for being robots. They have really awesome attacks. They look really cool, and yeah, I enjoy them a lot. So I would put them over Kraid and Corpius, but below Emmy.
So I've got it at 4. You've got it at 2. It seems appropriate then to put it at 3.
Yeah.
Can we go for that? Okay.
Right.
So moving on. I was actually, when I was reflecting on the list of bosses in Metroid Dread, I was thinking to myself, and I was actually fairly surprised at how much I enjoyed this next fight. And I feel like, maybe I'm assuming, but I feel like you didn't really enjoy it. But that was with, I'm going to butcher saying this, Drogiga,
I think is what its name is.
Drogiga. Sure, Drogiga. Let's go with that. The big sea monster.
Yeah.
In the top of Berenia. I I like this fight actually. I think that it's challenging, but there's a certain sequence that you can do this fight where like if you are good, then it can be a breeze, and if you don't know what to do and you're not really sure, then it can be pretty tough. But once you kind of get the pattern down and you can see the visual cues, you can actually do really well in this fight. So I like the fact that because at this point you don't have the gravity suit yet, if
Oh,
I'm not
yeah, don't
mistaken.
remind me.
So it is a little bit of a slower fight for sure, but that kind of plays into the danger of actually what's going on. So I do like that it's a little bit different. It's kind of like a puzzle as well as a fight. So you have to shoot the switches on both sides. You have to use the spider magnet with your grapple beam in order to get across the room, and then you need to absolutely unload in your window of opportunity. And if you're really really good, there's a quick time event where you can counter Dragaiga right at the end and like get some massive damage. And if you, I mean, really, if you don't, it's gonna make you pay. So the tentacles come at you fast and heavy. The the flames. I don't know. Maybe they're flames. Maybe it's acid. Whatever. I like that they come down at you and like you can kill or shoot two of the three of them and get ammo or health, but like the other one you just have to avoid. So I actually like this fight quite a bit, and I guess maybe a little bit surprised by how much I went and enjoyed it. I kind of like the monster element again. It's like kind of like this giant squid like being that just I don't know, just kind of reminds me of like a classic like a kraken or something like that. I think that's kind of the vibe that they were going for. So this was this would be on the upper echelon of my boss fights in this game.
Admittedly, I don't think every fight in this game needs to be like super high intensity or like whatever, but yeah, I don't know. I'm conflicted on this boss fight. On one hand, I think it's really creative. I think it's cool. I like how they reuse the Corpius idea again here, where like you can tell like it's somewhat similar or has elements of Corpius's like head and whatnot in here too, and its body shape and whatnot. And like they've worked that into different boss designs in the game, which I think is cool. And yeah, you get to use like the storm missiles. There are different puzzles and whatnot. I think it's just gonna be soured because again, like one of the things I hate most about this game is how long I spend in the water without the gravity suit, and like it just doesn't feel good to me moving around in the water without the gravity suit. Like it's not fun. Like it makes sense and I understand it logically in the context of the game, but it's just not fun gameplay to me. So a boss fight that is very much like involved with that kind of gameplay, you're kind of standing at one point, just standing there shooting its drops, and then you gotta have to like grapple over, and it has some cool puzzles, but I don't know, it's a bit too slow for my taste. I don't really like playing around the water without the gravity suit. That said, it does remind me of like the spore spawn kind of a little bit. Like that's kind of the boss that made me reminded me of a little bit. So
Okay,
it kind
I
of
could see that. Lots of waiting around for key moments there. Yeah.
yeah, but it kind of feels in a way like Kraid did, where it has like a big boss presentation, but the actual gameplay feels very much like a mini boss, if that makes sense. So I don't know. It's towards the bottom of my list. It is above Kraid, but it's below Corpius. It just I'm not a fan of underwater gameplay without the gravity suit, and this has it. So it definitely knocks it down for me.
I thought that you were going to say that, and I respect that actually. I don't necessarily disagree with you because it does really slow down the fight. But kind of to your first point, it was different. So I like
Yeah.
that. You look at the list of bosses in this game of like, man, you got the Chozo robot, you got the Chozo spear soldier, you got Raven Beak, you've got lots of like really intense, high faced fights where like you have to be fairly precise with your inputs. And this one I felt like was a little bit more relaxed. Like, yeah, you have to be precise when you jump over the tentacles, or else they're gonna slap you around for huge damage. But it's more so just like it basically is like the fact that you don't have the gravity suit and you move slow in the water. That's as much a threat as the actual boss itself. So different. I can understand that you didn't like that. I took Kraid and I just ranked it on our list, and I said I'd owe you one, so you can put this one wherever you want.
What's the list right now again?
So we got number 1, Emmy. We got number 2, Kraid. We got number 3, the Chozo Soldier, and we've got number 4, Corpius.
I mean, this isn't a hill I'm gonna die on, but like if I were to put it somewhere, I would put it maybe I'd put it at the bottom of our current list.
Well, that's fair.
If
I
you
mean,
want to
I'm
put it
not
above
gonna.
Corpius, you want to make that compromise. I'm down.
You know what? I'm probably okay with it below Corpius because I think that Corpius is probably a cooler fight, especially like with the context of like what a great intro fight it is.
I'm not
So
burning my
I
IOU on
think
this
that
thing. Is all I'm saying.
okay.
So
I think that I'm probably still okay with it going at the bottom. I would be okay with that.
all right, sounds
So
good
yeah.
to me then.
Okay, so let's move on. Or actually, I guess let's recap our list here really quick. We're gonna see how many times I can get this boss's name wrong. Number 1, we got Emmy. Number 2, Kraid. Number 3, Robot Chozo Warrior. Number 4, Corpius, and number 5, Dragaiga. I think that's got to be how you say it, hey?
Yeah, I think so.
Dragaiga.
Drogiga. I think it's Drogiga. That's why.
We
I don't know.
nailed it. All right. Okay, let's move on to the next boss, which is the Chozo Spear Warrior in all of its iterations. And I like this one, man. I think that it's a cool fight. It's kind of like a nice little combination of a lot of things that I like in this game. It feels like it's a nice mini boss. It's a nice powerful enemy. It gets progressively stronger as you fight it towards the game. Usually comes in with like kind of a cool setting. I think the first time that you fight it is in, can't remember if it's in Ferenia or if it's in where the X are stored. But the first setting that when you fight it is a really cool setting, and then usually subsequently it's a pretty cool environment that you fight it in. Particularly the last one with the big golden shield, which you can grapple away and fight this dude faster, or you can blow it up and get some pickups from that. So I kind of like that as well, that you have the option and both have their advantages and disadvantages. But yeah, I really like the first phase of this fight where it's just kind of like a nice drag him down brawl where like you're jumping over and shift flashing and shooting. And then the second phase is kind of the same thing, but like you kind of have to slow it down a little bit once the warrior gets on the wall and starts splewing that black venom symbiote at you. So I like that part. The spear aesthetic is just like super cool, and you have a pretty badass quick time event at the end too, where you literally just open its mouth and then like, bam, who's your daddy right into its mouth. This is a cool fight. I like this one.
Yeah, this is like the opposite of what I was saying with Kraid and Droigiga. This is a fight where it's presented like a mini boss, but it feels like a boss fight. These guys, I really enjoy these. Some of again, just like the robot Chozo soldiers, these are some of my favorite boss fights in the game. They're really fun, intense, and fast. If you get that pattern down, it's really satisfying to take them out. And even when they go into like their X form and they're, yeah, like you said, like jumping on the wall and they're shooting that like hit scan like goo blast at you, like that's still something you have to respect, even if you've done it a bunch of times. Satisfying to fight these guys. It feels like a traditional Metroid fight in like how it's the room is set up, but it really kind of ups the ante in terms of, you know, requiring a bit more technical skill. Personally, I just mashed I just mashed missiles on the warrior's shield, so I guess that wasn't a very technical aspect on my part, but it was still fun and very satisfying to do so. So yeah,
Especially when it breaks.
yes, very much. I love these fights. These are really cool. Yeah, like the intros were like they're kind of stalking you at one point, and then they jump in. Like the different rooms are cool. I really like this idea how you get this like Chozo Warrior fight, but then they turn in like to the X versions too. Really awesome idea. These are again towards like the upper middle part of my list here. I really like these.
Okay, so if you could probably influence me here. I think I would put them under Kraid, but be above the Chozo Robot Warrior. What would you say?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you want. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Having Kraid so high up, I cannot agree with. Because now Kraid's getting pushed up so far, while he's so low on my list. Um, so I would put him. I mean, I would put him above Kraid. I would put these above Kraid. But if you want to put him right
Uh,
below Kraid, I could make that compromise, but I still think it's
all
because
right,
Kraid is too
but
high for
you
me.
still got one over me. Okay, I'm okay with that. Okay, let's move on to the next boss. I think that this might be the worst boss in the game, actually, and that is SQ, which is really a nothing fight. He's that bug that you
Yeah.
fight in Ferenia. He has the cross bombs, so he basically lays bombs in like a little pattern, and you can just space jump to avoid them or slide
Isn't
under
that
them.
Golzona
There's
that does that? The big crab thing? I thought
well,
SQ was
no.
the bug.
Oh yeah, you know what? You're right. You are correct. He is the bug. He doesn't have the cross bombs.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah. He
sorry.
has
I
like
saw
the
the
yeah.
I saw the purple and thought cross bombs. No, he has the storm missiles. I'm sorry.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So this guy has the storm missiles, and that's pretty much the fight. He shoots storm missiles at you. You can either avoid them, or I don't think that you can shoot most of them down. I think you just have to kind of get out of the way. Not a great fight, especially because the last run that I did, I went and got the screw attack before I went and did this fight, and so I jumped into him with the screw attack like 5 times, and he was toast. So I think that this is one of the weaker fights of the game, probably the weakest fight of the game actually, but very cool when the Core X pops up. That was an awesome moment, but not enough to stop me from putting this bottom of the list.
Yeah, I didn't put it at the very bottom, but I can't really disagree. Like it's certainly only a standout boss fight for the Core X reveal at the end. Like that was such an awesome moment. Totally blew me away. I was so happy about that. Aside from that, I think it's a pretty cool enemy. Like it's a solid mini boss, and like I remember playing it for the first time or playing against it for the first time and being like, wow, why didn't they breed more of these? These are way stronger than the Metroids. Like they're deadly if against like a regular kind of enemy. So I don't know. I thought they were pretty cool, but yeah, not like a crazy intense or hard boss fight. Pretty run of the mill, but for Dread still kind of has that Dread intensity that a lot of these other bosses have. I think it's a good boss fight, but it's a mini boss fight, and that's really all it is. I think it serves that purpose. It's not meant to be. I think it's really meant more for the Core X reveal and not really to be a crazy intricate boss fight. So I think it served its purpose, but I'd be fine with it being at the bottom of the list. It's not very high on mine.
Yeah, I really think that pretty much is what it is. Like you fight the boss, you beat it, and then the Core X, like that really is like the boss fight right there. Even though you have to go through SQ beforehand to get there, I will say this little guy was pretty difficult for me on my hard run. I did a hard run where I tried to get under 4 hours, and I did get under 4 hours, by the way. But with limited supplies, this was actually kind of a tough battle,
Mm-hmm.
and it wasn't tough in like a fun way, if that makes sense. Like when you're fighting like Raven Beak or Experiment, those are tough, but like it's kind of fun to learn from your mistakes and see if you can better yourself in the next fight.
Mm-hmm.
This one, I was just kind of like, ugh, I gotta do this again. So yeah, I think, sorry, but I think bottom of the list. Let's move on to something that I don't think will be anywhere near the bottom of the list, actually, and that is the twin robot Chozo fights. These were
Whew.
pretty intense. These dual Chozo Warriors coming at you again. I know that you fight them in Berenia. I think you fight them in the forest area as well. So I think there's at least 2, maybe 3 times where you are forced to confront not one, but 2 of these deadly robots that just massacred me at the beginning of the game. So this was a pretty intense fight. At this point, you know what you need to do, but it's a lot more kinetic. You're moving a lot more, going from place to place, because really, if you're standing still, you're not going to last very long. These fights get substantially easier, like I mentioned earlier, once you have the storm missiles. But yeah, I think by the time that you get to the twin fights, you're in a little bit better position. You're a little bit more equipped to deal with all of their offense. So this is pretty fun. I would rank it. I think on our list as it is right now, I would put it in 4th beneath the Spear Warriors and
What?
above the regular
What?
warriors. I would,
False.
yeah.
Oh my god, the twin robot Chozo soldiers are some of the best bosses in the game. I had so much fun fighting these. They were so hard, and like you had one. I already liked the Chozo robot soldiers, but then giving me two of them, and like just rushing me down. Sometimes dropping the frame rate of the game itself. Oh man, I loved these. You're gonna owe me one. My IOU. I'm cashing it in. These are above Kraid. I mean, this was a by far like
Oh,
so much of a better boss fight and way more fun. You had these. You had
Kraid.
hey man, you wanted it. You got it. I mean, the arenas you fight them in are even really cool. There's like one awesome Chozo arena you fight them in. Yeah, they're just like high intensity, constantly rushing you down. There's two of them. I remember taking a while at first to take these down because they were a real challenge until you really knew what you're doing. Like this was, I loved these. One of my favorite moments of the game. I really loved like the simplicity of I just give you two and like in a very similar sized room and have at it. It just feels like a very pure slugfest kind of fight, which are my favorite kind of boss fights in this game. So yeah, I mean I would put these right below the Emmys, and I'm going to because you owe me one, and you're gonna put them above Kraid.
All right, we're even now, pal.
All right.
We're even now. Let me read off the list as it stands right now. At number one, we've got the Emmys. Number two, Twin Chozo Robot Warriors. Number three, Big Daddy Kraid. Number four, the Chozo Spear Warrior. Number five, the singular Robot Chozo Warrior. Number six, Corpius. Number seven, Dragaiga. Why can I not see that name? What's the matter
Gaiga.
with me? Dragaiga. And number whatever we were at. Last place is SQ. So rip to my boy SQ. Okay, let's talk about this next fight here because I think I was thinking about Experiment Z57, and I was kind of comparing it to. I feel like this is Metroid Dread's Diggernaut fight, where like it's a very cinematic, really really awesome, really multifaceted battle that really has a lot of the same properties where it's like the screen kind of changes. You have to space jump constantly to avoid stuff coming at you. There's a lot going on to this fight. So I guess let's back up and start at the beginning. Of course, you see the experiment in Dairon when you're first going through, and you see these little needles poking at him and prodding him, and you're just like, oh, this looks like a pretty gruesome looking monster. I hope that it doesn't escape. Probably thinking that you're going to be fighting him in the not too distant future. So you actually get there. This is the monster responsible for clogging up the magma core heater and causing the entire planet to freeze. I thought that this was actually Corpius X the first time that I saw him because he kind of looks a little bit similar. But you start off and you have like the first phase, which I think is really fun, kind of eases you in a little bit, where he's swiping at you left to right. He's throwing all kinds of things at you. But the second phase, I feel like, is where it really shines, and like he gets that I don't know what you want to call it. He starts blowing wind at you, or like the force of his laser is so intense that Samus has to literally run the other way and avoid all of the beams or whatever is coming at you. And of course, this is where you can do the quick kill, charge up your Shine Spark, and just blast Experiment Z57 right in the face. So I think that this is just like it's a really fun fight. I think that sequence of jumping over all of the stuff coming at you is really fun and really satisfying. And the cutscenes in this fight are like so awesome. If you counter Experiment, you get like basically put on its neck, and he drags you all the way back to the central reactor, and then all the way back. It's like it's an awesome visual fight. The setting is cool. I really like the mechanics behind it. I think this would be number two on my list as we have it so far.
Yeah, I honestly, this is like a full package boss fight for me. Like they have the awesome setup with the foreshadowing in the background. They have the boss like directly tied to the events of like the plot of the game. The boss fight itself is fantastic. Like you have these huge like swipes and double swipes, like the laser blast. You're avoiding the goo on the wall and on the floor, like you said, like the wind blast jumping over the wave beams and whatnot. Like there's so many cool aspects to this fight. Really cool, really creative, and again, like goes on this kind of Corpius esque design too, and brings that back, just like kind of Corpius and Dragaiga. So overall, I would also put this at number two. This is how you do a boss. Like it tied into the story. I mean, again, I can't knock it particularly for this boss because this goes for everything in the game. But I cannot at all remember what the boss theme is, and it's probably not good. But I have to just accept that none of them are in this game. So besides that, I think the presentation is like near flawless. It's awesome. The cutscenes are incredible, tied into the game really well. Boss fight is really a lot of fun and rewards you for having some solid skills and knowledge as well. So this is like I think one of the just a quintessential Metroid fight, like a modern Metroid fight right here. Like this is a standard. I think I would put this at number two, below the enemies, above the twin robot soldiers.
Well, there we go. We agree. And you know what? One thing about this fight, and you can say this about a few different fights in this game, actually. I just like really love when you are fighting a boss in Metroid, and you like optimize the fight, or like you've got it down in a way that makes you feel like you are awesome at Metroid, and like when you can do things like the quick kill with the shine spark, or like even when he in the first phase when he's shooting the lasers at you, and like you gotta air dash over to like the one area that's not covered in gunk, and then you can start shooting him in the face again. It's just like the little things that make me feel like, man, I'm pretty good at this game. And like, even though I wouldn't say I'm very good at video games really in general, it's just like when a game makes you feel like you're pretty good, I think that's just like very rewarding. And there are multiple instances in this fight in particular, like if you can jump over all of the things coming at you when he's blowing wind at you, if you can pull off the shine spark kill, if you can just air dash to the right spot, if you can get your storm missiles on all of his hands on the wall. Like there's so many things in this fight that make you feel like if you can pull them off, like, dude, I'm pretty good at this game, and I really like that.
Absolutely. That's one of the best things about a game like this, where it rewards you for, learning and improving, but also, putting some more time in, and it feels good. It feels satisfying when you overcome those challenges. That's a great thing about a challenging game, is that when you overcome those challenges, it feels really good rather than just having it handed to you or being told where to go or whatever. So, yeah, I love that about this.
All right, well, I'm going to tell this next boss where to go, because I think that he's probably second last on my list, and that is Golzuna, who I couldn't even remember his gimmick earlier. He's the crossbomb guy.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, not really much to say about this. He's basically a bigger giant enemy crab, an enemy that you have fought multiple times in the game at this point. Really, the only cool thing about this boss fight is that you can charge up your shine spark and then drop into the fight. You can shine spark across and immediately destroy the first crab. You can run across the room, charge up your shine spark again, immediately destroy the second crab once you jump over it. And then you can do the whole thing again, run across the room, charge up your shine spark, and you can ram Golzuna right in the butt if you get your timing right. It doesn't kill him, but kind of satisfying. But yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, it's kind of a meh fight. There's not really much to it. He makes the crossbomb patterns, like I said earlier. You can space jump through them, or you can avoid them, and you basically just have to slide under him and shoot him in the butt, and then that's the fight. You do get a Core X, which is cool. The setting is kind of cool, but yeah, this one's pretty. In a game of amazing boss fights, this one's only pretty good.
Well, that's the thing. Like, again, it's very clearly a mini boss, right? Like, it's not. I think that's one thing to keep in mind with a lot of these. Same with SQ too. Like, these are mini bosses, right? Like, I don't think it's necessarily fair to be like, oh, that's not as good as like Kraid or Experiment Z57. Like, well, those are meant to be major bosses, so it's never going to be as good. So I think the Golzuna X, Core X, whatever whole phase thing, that whole boss package, I think for a mini boss is fine. But yeah, in terms of the grand scheme of bosses in the game, definitely towards the bottom. There's not really much challenge or skill at these. I think the character, like the enemy designs, are really cool. I like how it morphs into like the Golzuna X form, and obviously having a Core X attached to it is always going to be cool from a Metroid fan perspective. But it didn't. We've already seen a Core X by then, so it didn't have the same reveal kind of effect that SQ at least had. So yeah, I would put it I guess, towards the bottom of my list. But again, I think it's just, important to keep in mind that like this and some other characters, some other enemies aren't necessarily meant to be major bosses in the game. But at the same time, you have like the Chozo robots and the warriors, which are also not supposed to be major bosses, but those are much better mini bosses too. So it goes both ways. But yeah, I would also put this towards the bottom of my list. It's a cool presentation, a pretty solid mini boss, but nothing completely stand
I
out.
put it above SQ.
Huh?
I'd put it above SQ.
Yeah.
I would do that.
Okay.
Yeah. One other thing about Metroid Dread too is that it doesn't really distinguish between mini bosses and regular bosses. Typically, in your Metroid games of past, you would have the Ghidorah or the boss door, and that would let you know that you are about to encounter a boss. Where like in Super Metroid, you get to Spore Spawn, you get to Botwoon, and you don't have that Ghidorah. So it was you kind of see that in this game at some points when you fight the Chozo Warriors or the Spear Warriors, but for the most part, I think every other boss on this list has a Ghidorah in front of it that indicates that you are going to a boss fight. So
Yeah.
yes, I can see what you're saying about the mini boss versus regular boss, but you also do have that same expectation because you are going through the boss door
that's fair.
to get there.
Yeah.
So okay, well let's read our list before we bring it home and we get to the last one here. We've got number 1, Emmy. Number 2, Experiment Z57. Number 3, Twin Chozo Robot Warriors. Number 4, Kraid. Number 5, Chozo Spear Warrior. Number 6, Robot Chozo Warrior, easy for me to say. Number 7,
Chozo.
Corpius. Number 8, Gaiga. Number 9, Golzuna. And number 10, Eskew. So it was always going to come down to this, I think. Once we decided to package the Emmys together, I feel like for me, it was always a question of, okay, what's taking number 1? Is it going to be Emmys, or is it going to be Raven Beak, which is, of course, the next and final boss on our list. And man, what a final boss! I think that you could make a case of this being like an absolute top tier Metroid boss fight, and I think I'm gonna put it at number 1 above the Emmys because it is an isolated experience, because the setting. First of all, you're on that wicked airship. You've just had the reveal that Raven Beak is in fact Adam and has been kind of pulling your strings the whole game. You're fighting a Chozo, which is incredible, and the cutscenes in this are wicked when he pulls off his cloak and has the whole Sephiroth one-winged angel deal and just like rips out his own wing.
What is happening right now?
Oh, that was awesome. I was expecting him to pull out Masamune and just like get ready to body Samus, but like it was great. So that was awesome. There was a little bit of personal stakes here because we found out that Raven Beak had infused Samus with some of his own DNA. Your mileage may vary, but I thought that was really cool. And the fight itself, this is a fight. Like there's 3 phases, and each phase is pretty difficult to get through. It took me forever to get into the first phase, or past the first phase, which is a lot of like really, really precise countering, a lot of really precise, like knowledge, like knowing that, okay, I'm not just going to avoid the big black ball that he's shooting out. I'm going to have to destroy it, because if I do, it's going to give me health and it's going to give me missiles. And if I don't, it's just going to hit me and cause like a massive ton of damage, and it's not going to go away. So learning that, I think, was key. Realizing that you could slide under the red mist, I think, was key. And just really nailing down all of those counters, because there are a ton of them. And second phase, I thought that it was made really good use of your space jump. I frequently run out of missiles when I'm fighting him in the second phase, so like I use my beams to fight him. And the third phase was pretty intense too, especially if, and I'm curious if you knew this. Actually, I think you did, because I told you. But I know that a lot of players got to the third phase. Raven Beak kind of summoned his big sun that goes in the middle.
Oh yeah,
and that basically shoots out little sun balls at you. And the first time I fought him, I was like, okay, maybe I should just try power bombing it to see if it goes away. And it did. but I know a lot of people did not use a power bomb on that and basically tried to avoid that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a pretty crazy
I
fight.
would definitely say I'm happy I was streaming that fight because I needed some help from chat. I needed some backseat gamers to help me out. This fight is incredible.
I had a fun night when you were fighting Raven Beak, just like slide, slide.
Oh, no, you were telling me to slide. I was supposed to morph ball. Morph balling was way easier.
No,
Yeah.
you
You don't need to
slide.
slide. You can
Oh,
morph ball. You don't need to slide.
yeah, but you should slide. It's way cooler.
It's not about cool. It's about getting the W, Andy. It's all about winning
Wow.
and any means necessary and by least effort possible. And that was a morph ball. And then thankfully that I figured that out. Yeah, I love this boss fight. It was so cool, so intense. I wish they put this character in Smash. Cinematics are sick. This is hard. I mean, honestly, if it were up to me, I would say the Raven Beak is tied with the Emmys for first. That's what I would say. I just can't choose because on one hand, like, yeah, it's an individual experience. Like the Raven Beak fight is such a incredible final boss fight and has so many awesome moments. The character's so sick. Has this like awesome like Kid Buu like hand blast that goes off into the air, and like the slow like fire Akuma fireball is like the raging demon is like all these awesome moves and like such a sick character design. Yeah, like goes like angel mode at one point. I'm like, what is like at that point I was like,
Oh.
I don't is the Chozo supposed to have that was like, is Chozo supposed to have realistic bird wings? I don't know. I guess they do. I was very thrown off by that, but I thought this was awesome. But like at the same time, the Emmys are like so essential to this game, and are such a cool twist on the usual Metroid boss fight, and like they're so integral to like the areas, and they have these large rooms. I can't pick, man. I personally would have them tie because like they're both so strong in different ways. As an individual boss fight, the Raven Beak is top notch, but like overall, the Emmys are the commanding concept of the game, are the commanding hook of the game, and I think this game would, even if we had a different boss fight and it wasn't Raven Beak, you'd still need the Emmys for this game. Like the Emmys are part of this game's character, so.
Yeah.
I would say I would personally put the Emmys over Raven Beak, but I could see an argument for both. I would say they'd be tied for me. It's hard to choose.
Yeah, I can see that, and I think I'm gonna justify me putting Ravenbeak at number one for three reasons here. Number one, because I feel like the Emmys are more of a concept versus an actual boss fight, and I think if you're looking at an actual fight, I mean, Ravenbeak is the best in the game. I think that it's just like hands down. Number two, because you don't really get that fight, and I guess this kind of bleeds into number three as well. But like you don't really get that one-on-one boss fight where you actually get to fight the Emmys. I was kind of expecting the game to lead you up to that, where you would get to fight an Emmy, kind of like you fought Diggernaut in Samus Returns. Or I was kind of thinking that maybe they're leading it and building up to like a Ridley Emmy or something like that.
Yeah, what happened with that?
Number,
What are they
number
building,
three,
man? What?
DLC, baby. DLC. I hope so.
Yeah.
But number three, I do think that the fact that you just defeated the last Emmy in a cutscene bumps it just down Ravenbeak for me. I think as a concept, they're incredible, and it's so tense. It's such an intense feeling going from the Emmy, particularly later in the game where they can freeze you or they can move fast or they can shoot through walls at you. But I think if we're ranking boss fights, like the fight with Ravenbeak is just like, it is just on another level. You have to use all of your skills, everything that you've learned in this game, from space jumping to the countering to just the way to use your missiles and pick your time. It's so good that I think Ravenbeak has to be number one.
All right. Well, I'm okay with putting him at one. That's fine with me.
All right, well, okay, that was easier than I thought it might be. So with that, then we have our list. So drum roll, please, as I go backwards and read you the final list. Number 11, we got Eskew. Number 10, Golzuna. Number 9, Dragaiga. Number 8, Corpius. Number 7, Robot Chozo Warrior. Number 6, Robot Spear Warrior. Number 5, Kraid. Number 4, Twin Chozo Robot Warriors. Number 3, Experiment Z57. Number 2, the Emmys. and number 1, Raven Beak. I think that that's pretty close to what my list would have looked like at the end.
Yeah.
To be
Yeah,
honest,
it's not far off for me. Other than Kraid being a bit high, it's pretty spot on.
yeah, I think I might have had Kraid above the twins, and I might have had Corpius a little bit higher. But yeah, the thing is like all these boss fights are just like so good that it's almost like it's not like there's like a huge drop off from one boss to the other. I feel like the biggest drop off for me is going from Dragaiga to Golzuna and Eskew.
Yeah.
I feel like otherwise most of those bosses are kind of in a similar tier of quality. Maybe not. Maybe actually, I think Experiment Z57 to the twin Chozo Robot Warriors for me is a little bit of a drop off, but those top 3 boss fights are just like so awesome that you wouldn't want a game to have like every single fight be like you kind of need that cooldown boss fight that's a little bit easier or a little bit more of a puzzle.
Yeah.
So
I'm down with one that's high intensity every time, but I agree.
So yeah, I think that our list is pretty appropriate and kind of a nice reflection of your and I's personal taste. But of course, we want to hear what you guys have to think, have to say. And the best place for you to let us know is over on Omega Metroid's Discord server. Come and join us and hang out. Dak, anything you want to mention before we get on out of here?
No, I would just say that I think I mentioned this on the show last time, or maybe last time we talked, but the fact that I still think very highly of this game's gameplay and bosses without having Ridley in the game, as much as I really would have liked to have seen what they were building in the background of that room, just goes to show how well done and overall successful the bosses are in this game. So maybe we will get some DLC. I hope we do, because I'd love some more Metroid Dread boss fights.
There we go. Fingers crossed for a boss rush mode. Maybe they could even include like X versions of the bosses. That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be sick.
But that would be sick. But we hope that this episode was sick and that you enjoyed it. Of course, you can check us out over on Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and check us out over on Twitter at Omega Metroid Pod. I am at Spateri316, and Dak is at DakCity_. We are out of time, but we will be back here next week. Until then, everybody, take care.